Oh, yeah, I just thought I'd jump on and make a video. I always say I make a short video, and very often not. But there you go. I don't make any notes when I do these videos. I always found when I was in business, I used to give lots of sort of presentations and um, sort of speaking, and I always found it went better when I didn't make any notes. Just sort of flowed. Um, that's what Ramesh Balsekar used to say. He was he used to translate. He was a translator for Nisargadatta Maharaj, who was his guru. He used to translate into English. And one day, Ramesh said that he almost knew what his guru, Nisargadatta Maharaj, was going to say next. And he used to, one day the words just flowed. He didn't have to do any sort of mental translation before he spoke in English what Maharaj had just said. And he says after that sort of realization, he sometimes just think, oh, for goodness sake, hurry up. He was a bit impatient, was Ramesh. And he loved people to ask him questions. Yeah, come. Are there any questions? Yes, yeah. You ask me the question. He said that there were no new questions. And just he had this ability to when people would sort of just ramble on, he could actually say, "Would you like me to tell you what I think you're asking, what your question is?" And often, we just hit the nail on the head. Anyway, so no notes. It's a Sunday today. It's what we call Mothering Sunday or Mother's Day in the United Kingdom, I think. Which was actually a Sunday when people in service, servants in the old days, working for all this sort of landed gentry or even just middle class, they would always have servants. But the Sunday before, I think it's the Sunday before, so many Sundays before Easter, I'm not sure, but they used to have the day off, and what they used to do is go home and see their mum, go and see their parents. So this was born as a sort of Mothering Sunday or Mother's Day, and I think it's like all these things, it's sort of picked up by the marketing industry, and they produce Mother's Day cards, and it's sort of florists send your mum some flowers or go and buy some flowers or some chocolates. My mum always liked a box of chocolates. She used to like Milk Tray, which I don't know if they still make, Cadbury's. Anyway, going on a bit now. So it's Mothering Sunday. So everybody's out in all the restaurants and all the pubs with their mum, buying her scampi and chips and a glass of wine or two, and make a fuss of her. But there we are. So I'm going to go out for a walk in a minute. It's a beautiful sunny day down here in Devon, in England. Right, so what was I going to talk about? I watched a programme last night on television, which was presented by a guy called Professor Brian Cox, who's quite a young professor, as it were. Extremely bright, very erudite. He can explain things, quite complex scientific concepts and theories with an ease that normal people can sort of pick up on. And what he was talking about on this program last night was the birth of the universe, the Big Bang, and how this is all, they can, I don't know how they do it, but basically, because of the event of, well, basically everything sort of changed and knowledge was expanded when they put this thing called the Hubble telescope up into space. And then there's been another one put up now, it's even more powerful, which can see much greater distances with much greater clarity. I think it's called the Plunkett telescope or something. I can't. So it begins with P. You can look it up. And what he was saying is they've been able to measure when the Big Bang took place, which he said was 13.8 billion years ago, and that the Earth was formed. I think it was it 4.8 or 3.8 billion years ago. And there you have it. You know, all the things he was saying completely confirm what the ancient Rischis, the ancient Indian teachers, were teaching at least 5,500 years ago, and goodness knows how long before that, that they described, believe it or not, the Big Bang. They didn't call it the Big Bang. And Ramesh Balsekar used to say that the universe came into existence when potential energy activated itself, and this actification became the manifestation of what we call the universe, and that this energy is in everything, including you and me and all the animals, the Earth, the Sun, the planets, the galaxies. And I think he said there's something like, this is Brian Cox, that there are trillions of galaxies even. Anyway, so what Brian Cox was saying was that at one point there was a point of energy that was so tiny, and we don't know how, or he didn't know how tiny, that suddenly became the Big Bang. It expanded at first very, very slowly, and then there was this huge acceleration. And this is exactly what Ramesh used to describe, is that this potential energy activated itself. And he said it had to be potential energy, because if it was dead, if it was not potential energy, it would be dead energy. So then this is what the ancient Rischis were teaching at least 5,500 years ago. And Ramesh said that when this potential energy activated itself, there was this expansion, and everything was put into the manifestation. A bit like Ramesh would describe it as the game of snooker or billiards, where the cue ball is smashed into the triangular balls, and depending on the force of that ball and the angle at which it hits the ball at the front, all the balls fly off in different directions. They bounce off the cushion, they hit each other. Now, it's possible to predict that with science, but what Ramesh says, there's this expansion still going on, and this manifestation, as it were, is what happens. It happens, it happens, it happens, it happens. It's still happening. The universe is expanding at a faster and faster rate, so Brian Cox was saying. Yeah, it's fascinating, really, that they're just discovering what the ancient rishis were talking about. It's Ramesh would say that the manifestation, how we're consciousness, we're all individual um, packets, if you like, of consciousness in these human bodies and in trees and other animals and even insects. That we're just part of this. He described it as a feature film, where the manifestation or the source or God or whatever you want to call it has written the script, i.e. the Big Bang. That's the script, and the manifest plays all the parts. It's written the script, plays all the parts, all the props. Whatever happens, it happens. It's all predetermined. And Ramesh used to talk about everything happens as it happens, and used to describe it in a way of A happens in order that B can happen. B happens in order that C can happen. C happens in order that D can happen. E happens in order that F can happen. But it points both ways, because he would say that in order for F to happen, E had to happen. In order for E had to happen, D had to happen. In order for D to happen, C had to happen, and so on and so forth. And this is it's called everything's predetermined. And even one of our British scientists, I think he's world famous. He's died now. He's called Stephen Hawking. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't speak. He had to speak from a computer, from, I don't know, sort of one of these what would you call it? Artificial voice machines, really. He would type it in, and then the machine used to sound like a robot. He's in a wheelchair. He had motor neurone disease. They gave him 5 years to live, and I think he lived 50. It just shows how much doctors know, doesn't it? Anyway, yes. So Stephen Hawking wrote an essay on is everything predetermined, and came to the conclusion it was. And you can Google it. I think it is Everything Predetermined by Stephen Hawking. I'll see if I can find a link to it, and I'll put it in the information box later on. So yeah, he wrote this and explained why everything was predetermined, and the conclusion he came to, because all scientists have to have a conclusion, it seems to me, for their concepts. Stephen Hawking had came to the conclusion that yes, everything is predetermined, but it's not. It doesn't really matter, because none of us know what's going to happen. Which that's his point of view. But my take on it was that Ramesh used to say everything's going to happen, so you're always going to do what you're going to do. Everybody else is always going to do what they're going to do. But the thing is, if you have that knowledge, then you can't have any regrets, really, because what's happened was always going to happen. I'm not to say that you don't find some of these things upsetting. To see your, I don't know, partner die, or you do something, and the consequences aren't really good for other people or even yourself. But perhaps I'm not. You can't have any blame about it or guilt, and this removes a lot of suffering. I'm not to say that you're not going to experience pain and pleasure, because that's exactly what we experience as human beings and other sentient beings. But it takes away the weight of it, really. That's what Ramesh used to say. You're still going to have pleasure and pain. You're still going to have success and failure. You're still going to have gain and loss. You're still going to have fame and disrepute. Some of these opposites, these opposites, are known as it's a Buddhist term, it's known as the 8 winds of the world. Perhaps I'll make a video about that one day. It's really interesting, I think. But, yeah, so yeah, there is this consensus between science and the ancient teachings of the Rischis, which all religions are based on. And perhaps I'll make a video about that one day. Ramesh used to say, and in all religions, there is one foundation: that God's will be done. Thy will be done, not my will be done, O Lord. Is a Christian text. In Islam, it's God willing. Anybody, if you have any Muslim friends, they often say Inshallah, God willing. Yeah, I'll come round for lunch, and I'll bring some I don't know, pudding or whatever. Inshallah, God willing. So yeah, everything happens in accordance with God's will, and that was what was taught by the ancient Rischis, and is repeated by Jesus, Muhammad, the Sikh religion, the Sikh religion is sort of based on the Rischis' teachings very, very closely, but it was formed in sort of if you like, a resistance towards the Hindu caste system. Sikhs treat everybody's equal. Men and women are equal. Everybody's equal, and we're just here to help each other. The teachings of Guru Nanak. We're just here to help each other. As Rumi, the poet, wrote, we're all just here to walk each other home. We're just here to help, and having this I don't know if you call it knowledge or realizations, or that everything's predetermined. Now that doesn't, and when I say that to people, Ramesh used to say, they used to say, oh, that's just fatalism. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit around on a couch and not do anything all day. But like Ramesh used to say, well, you try doing that. You try staying in bed all day. You can't. Because you've got to get up and go to the loo. You've got to get up and get a drink. You've got to get up and sort out some food. But what is the driving force? What makes us do anything? Just do what you think and feel like doing, is what Ramesh used to say. That's what I'm going to do in a minute. I'm going to put my walking boots on, and I'm going to go out in the sunshine, have a nice walk. And there you are. So scientists it just seems to me that they're spending a considerable amount of money and effort to find out. They sort of slice things up, don't they? They get more and more detail. Like for instance, the Big Bang took place 13.8 billion years ago. Well, frankly, how does that help anyone? How does that help anyone? Like, we're all here to help each other and walk each other home. What helps people is giving them some food. What helps people is giving them some drink. What helps people is educating their children. And as the Dalai Lama would say, we just be kind. You know, it's just be kind. If you can't be kind, don't do anything. I know, the Earth was formed 3.8 billion years ago. Who cares? So it's probably going to end up being wrong anyway, because I've done all the calculations wrong, because, you know, we're just not aware of everything that's happening in the universe. You know, it's like the laws of physics. You know, they don't always apply depending on the prevailing conditions in which they are measured, that things happen. You know, like, I don't know, what's this? Like water. We don't really know what water is. They say it's, you know, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, but we don't really know what it is, and how it can when it gets cold, it freezes and it becomes a solid object. And then when it gets warmer, it thaws out, and you got this liquid water. And then when it gets hotter, it turns into vapor and goes up in these clouds. And then when the clouds cool down, it rains. It goes round and round and round and round. But nobody really knows what we call. We don't know what it is. We know the molecular structure. But nobody really knows what water is. Anyway, just seems to me, you know, it's like, you know, Ramesh used to say, events happen, deeds are done, consequences happen, but there's no individual doer thereof. I.e., everything just happens as it's going to happen. So don't worry about it. You know, before I made this video, you know, you get all the, I don't know, on my computer, you get sort of news of the day pop up. And we now have an arrest warrant that's been issued for Vladimir Putin by the ICC, which I think is some sort of international crime, you know, crimes against humanity. So he's, you know, there's a warrant out for his arrest. If they get him, he'll be taken, I think it's to the Hague in the Netherlands, where there's this court. It's where they did, similar to the Nuremberg trials after the Second World War. So there's a warrant for Vladimir Putin's arrest for what he's done in Ukraine, and I think the war crime was to basically traffic Ukrainian children to Russia, and no one really knows what's happened to them, which is appalling. But you know, I guess it's happened. So there's an arrest warrant out for it, and then on the next sort of page is Donald Trump, the ex-American president, is expecting to be arrested in New York on Tuesday this week. What was it, the 18th, 20th of March 2023. Expecting to be arrested because they have evidence that, I don't know, Donald Trump either was paid some money or by a porn company, you know, makes pornography, or they paid him some money. I think it's him paying them some money. I really don't know what, but you know, so now we've got you know, the ex-president of the United States and the current president of Russia with arrest warrants out for them. It's sort of unprecedented, I think. Lead, you know, the ex-leader and a leader of two of the superpowers. And it's just, it's kind of frightening, you know. It could be frightening. Yeah, so events happen. So, you know, in order for something to happen, Vladimir Putin has to have an arrest warrant issued for him. Now, whether he's arrested or not, no one knows. We don't know what's going to happen, but something will come from it. And the same, I guess, with Donald Trump. And there's, I'm told, there's evidence that, Joe Biden, the current president of America, of the United States, and his son have had financial dealings with the Chinese. So well, there you go. And we've got our current ex-Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who later this month is going to be up in front of the Commons, the House of Commons committee, accused of misleading Parliament, of lying to Parliament, which is the worst thing that anybody can do, particularly a serving Prime Minister. He said, during the lockdowns, during the COVID crisis, no one was allowed to mix with anybody else, more than 3 people or whatever. You certainly couldn't have any parties. You could have meetings, but everybody had to be socially distanced and wear a mask and be vaccinated, or otherwise you weren't allowed. And Boris and even our serving Prime Minister now, Rishi Sunak, they were having parties in number 10 and number 11 and in Downing Street and other parts of Whitehall. There's photographs of Boris Johnson with people all around and bottles of booze everywhere holding a glass up. And they were saying, well, you're having parties, aren't you, Mr. Johnson? Prime Minister, you're having parties. It's, there's evidence. No, we didn't have any parties. And then it came out, they were, drinking booze and having discos down in the basement of number 10, all these civil servants. One of the parties was the night before our late Queen's husband's funeral, Prince Philip's funeral. She had to sit in the St. George's Chapel in Windsor for his funeral on her own with a mask. And the night before, in 10 Downing Street, they were having a party. So, in order for things to happen, something else had to happen. C had to happen so D could happen. D had to happen so E could happen. E happened because D happened. D happened because C happened. So, and I've seen sort of details of photographs of Mr. Johnson holding up glasses, and he was telling Parliament, no, it was just a work gathering. It wasn't a party. But then again, it's all about people's perception. Like Ramesh would say, people are just going to do what they're going to do as a result of their genetic makeup and their up-to-date conditioning, which is both out of their control. He said that has to be the case. Otherwise, why would anybody do anything stupid? And I think, Boris Johnson is a sort of confirmation of that. He didn't realise, he didn't think the rules applied to him. I don't know what was going. Who knows what was going through his mind as a result of his genetic makeup, his up-to-date conditioning. Well, there you are. Yeah, but take heart. This is what I do. I take, what's the word? It's reassurance, I think. That old word I've used before in the first video I made. Searching for support and reassurance. It's reassuring to me that everything happens in accordance with everything that happens was always going to happen, despite what I or anybody else did or said. It was going to happen. So I don't feel guilty about it. I don't feel any blame. I don't blame others. just happens. I'm not blaming Boris Johnson. He's got to pay the price. If you delight society, you please society, they will reward you. They give you accolades and medals and money and position and big houses, etc., etc., etc. Knighthoods we have in this country. He should be made Sir Boris Johnson because he's an ex-prime minister. But I don't know whether he'll get it or not. To be honest, who cares? So there you are. So sort of what Ramesh would say is all this knowledge, if you like, this information, these concepts, as they just give you peace of mind, that you can be peaceful inside, where there's just this, this unique individual portion of awareness. And just rest in that peace of mind. Don't know what's happening. It was always going to happen. And don't get involved with it. Yeah, Ramesh used to say, God's created the chaos. Let God sort it out. Do what you think and feel like doing. If you. But, well, there you are. Off on my walk now. What I'm going to say is, if you could hit the subscribe button if you like this. I'm going to make another video. You'll get a notification that I've made it. Push the like button because please, if you liked it, because that helps the YouTube algorithm. So once you get so many likes, it will start showing the video to other people, come up in their feeds. What else was I going to say? Yeah, if you, I do one-to-one sessions now, like on Zoom or what's it called? Teams, which is the Google thing. Or, I don't know, FaceTime if you've got an Apple product. I just do one-to-ones, just if you want to, if you think I can help. Very often I don't really say very much. It's just people find it helpful just to talk, and I'll listen. It's one thing I do. I learnt it when I lived in Thailand. It's called compassionate listening. Offer an opinion on it. So if you think I could help, do one-to-one sessions. I go into companies because a lot of this can be very helpful for companies, and that's my sort of background. I used to be in commercial television. I was director of a big advertising group in Bristol, and I was trustee of an art foundation. So, I'm used to looking at, and I had my own recruitment company at one time, headhunting company. So I'm very used to looking at how organisations work, and that can be profit or non-profit organisations. Because we're all the same thing. All organisations are the same thing. They're just, functioning. And people, process and people, the two P's. So I do that. Also do public speaking. So there you are. So drop me an email if you're interested in any of that. Now we'll be talking later on about trauma, how this affects people. Had a pretty traumatic early life myself, so which I've sort of squared myself with it all now. What happened. And again, teachings of Ramesh Balsekar have been very helpful for me to heal myself from these traumatic wounds, as it were, from when I was very, very tiny. But there you are. So I think I can help with that. Right. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Have a good time.